Good? Okay. I'm Tara Burkhart, Alderman of the First Ward. I serve with Mike Bruno. Tonight is October 8th, 2018. We're Committee of the Whole meeting. Everyone's present except for Alderman Radecki, who let us know he wouldn't be here. If I could get a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole minutes from September 24th, 2018.
So moved. Second.
Alderman Bruno with the motion, Alderman Marks with the second. Any discussion about the minutes? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Before we get into our items of business, we have a special guest tonight, and Mayor Burns is going to take that one over.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have a very special guest with us this evening, and by way of introduction, I want to share with everyone tuning in and here live in the chamber, Alderman Marks and I were shooting the bull a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about what Alderman Marks loves to talk about most, his family. And his son's name came up, and Mr. Marks explained to me that Captain Marks is due to be in town soon in Route 2, Fort Leavenworth, Missouri. He was recently promoted to captain, and he is here this evening with his lovely wife, Jessica. Captain, would you join us at the podium? And Jessica, if you feel comfortable doing so as well. Welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, you and I were visiting beforehand. You're making your way across country
Yes.
to Missouri.
To Missouri, correct. Yeah.
You will be for 6 or so months.
That's as far as I was told, yes.
And then, this is the best part. I asked the captain, what's the next assignment? And you responded that you get to write a Dear Santa letter requesting where you might go, but ultimately that decision's not yours.
Correct.
So it could be
Wherever they want to go.
wherever they want to go. Now, by way of background, you've been to a lot of places.
I have.
Your most recent experience,
I just got home from Afghanistan.
wow. You have some special guests with you tonight
Of
as
course.
well.
Yeah, my mother's here, my Aunt Diane, my cousin Katie, and her two twins, Kate and Kaya, and daughter Talia, and then my cousin Robbie and his wife Jenna.
And according to Jessica, Mrs. Marks, during your time in Geneva, en route to Cedar Rapids, where Jessica's from, and then off to Missouri, you've been dining out pretty much every night.
Pretty much.
Tonight's no exception.
No.
I understand you're probably going to the ale house.
That's the intent, yep.
So on the off chance when we're finished here this evening, if you need to get your dad's card, don't find that to be uncomfortable at all.
Of course.
He hasn't all week.
So when was the promotion, Captain?
October 2nd, yeah. Not even 2 weeks ago.
Amazing.
Just pinned.
And forgive me for my lack of knowledge on
course.
military protocol, but this is something you obviously were pursuing.
Yes.
Did you know it was coming, or was it, congratulations, you've made all the,
I had a general idea it was
Okay.
coming. Normally, you have to submit a promotion packet and a promotion board, and they go through a series of questions and series of past experiences and along those lines, and they qualify you to hit the next rank. And then, if pinned that, then you move forward in your career. So I won't have an opportunity to see major until about another 5 years or so, depending on where my career path ends.
but you're a young man, you graduated at St. Francis in 2010, I believe?
That is correct.
Is that a quick
It's-
climb through the,
So I've been in the Army for about 7 years now. I was enlisted before I became an officer. So I kind of always had a general idea of which way I needed to head. I won't say it was quick. It was probably right. I mean, it was on par. Normally, you have to be a lieutenant for a certain period of time. When I was deployed, I was a lieutenant. So I've been a second lieutenant, first lieutenant, and now captain.
wow. Now, Western Illinois University.
Yes.
So at Western, or perhaps at St. Francis, you knew you wanted to go into the military?
I don't.
Because I've heard the conversation you had with Mom and Dad about it,
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that.
which is why we have a defibrillator right here in the council chamber, but
You know, I asked that same question to just about every single one of my soldiers who enters my doors, why'd you join the service? And you'd be amazed at the different types of answers that I find. I don't think anyone's ever truly asked me why I've done what I've done, why I did what I did. When when I enlisted, I do remember that conversation with Mom. I think this is what I want to do. Told my dad, I'm either going to do this my way or you're going to help me do this the right way. And then we sat in the recruiter's office for a period of time. When I was in Kabul, Afghanistan, I sat on my bunk bed, and I never really had a question of doubt, but I kind of at one point realized what series of events led me to this moment right here, right now. And I kind of realized that this was an inevitable moment for me. I kind of realized, looked back at my mother was a nurse for an extended period of time. I remember going to Mary and Joy with her, and she was always in the ER room saving lives, doing those types of things. Dad's always dedicated his time to the people of Geneva, or whether it be St. Peter's, those types of things. And then it kind of just meshed into finding the right mentors along the line of being with the police officers, did an internship with the King County Sheriff's Office, and next thing you know, I was like, now this is the career path I want to do. I couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore. Can't be a police officer till you're 21, so let's do the next best thing. And I just fell in love with it ever since. And it's what I'm good at. It's what I enjoy. I've been in the right place with the right people, so no, it's been good.
That's a beautiful answer.
I appreciate that.
This is a career for you.
Right now, most likely, yes, it's looking that way.
Yeah.
My next decision will be at about 10 years, so I'm pretty much sold this will be 20 years for me.
And if you don't mind, I know that you and Jessica have been married for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And according to CNN, you met first week of college.
Correct.
And what was that meeting like?
Interesting. Wasn't prepared for that one. No, I met her.
No, she's already told me. I'm just curious if it matches.
I believe that. I met her week 1 in her dorm room.
My room.
And it kind of just, ever since then, just kind of fell into place one date after another. And
Was it a co-ed dorm, Captain?
was not,
It was a co-ed dorm, and I was hanging up pictures on my wall with another friend in the room who was his buddy. And Kevin walks in, and I'm standing on a chair, and I fall on my bottom. And so he likes to say he swept me off my feet. That's his nice line.
it was history ever since.
Okay.
That's
Now,
it. I'm not going more.
what's your version, Captain?
We're going to go with that one. I like that answer.
Wow. So, Kabul.
Kabul, yes.
Kabul. It's my understanding from conversations with Dad, you've seen some things. Communication back home, of course, is sporadic. How do you convey your safety to the family?
I did my best every single time I went outside the wire or whatever we were doing during our operations to let Jess know I may not be in communication for this period of time. If you need anything, reach back to Mom and Dad or her parents. She's had an amazing support system. Both her father actually is a captain of a volunteer fire department back at home, so he kind of understood those different types of situations. Obviously, it's not the same when you see things pop up on Fox News and CNN and knowing where I'm generally at in the AO. But normally when I got back off mission or whatever it might be, I did my best to get in some form of communication, let them know I'm safe, and I'll get in contact with you again. It was a lot of writing letters home, Skyping, those types of things, Facebook messages. But no, Jess had an amazing support group. My parents were champions all the way through it. I know it wasn't easy. Everyone looks at the soldier and say, like, what you went through must have been really hard. I knew what I was doing. I've trained for this my entire life. They were not prepared for this, so I knew that had to be a different turn of events for them. Not even 2 weeks prior to me pushing out to Afghanistan, I originally had orders to go to Africa, and I came back off leave and told Mom and Dad, change of orders, I'm going to Afghanistan, a little different mission set. But no, they've been prepared for this. I think they've understood where this is going, and I'm always willing to go back, depending on whether, no matter what the mission is. All the soldiers I've served with, they're ready now, so it's been a great experience. It had its ups and downs, but overall, amazing leadership over there, amazing soldiers. My team and I meshed really well. Our Afghan counterparts that we worked with downrange, every single one of them are looking to get to the next step. They're doing great things, but I was proud to be a part of that, absolutely.
And you were training the Afghans.
I was. So I worked for a NATO Special Operations group. Our goal was to train and advise their version of Afghan police officers. Best way to describe it was their Afghan version of SWAT. It was their national mission units. Wow. So they went out on different types of warrant operations depending on what different might entail. Afghanistan would call them action arms, but our goal was to make sure that they were prepared to go outside the wire, prep them up for all the mission stuff that they were going through. Was involved into a NATO environment of 9 different nations, supporting myself as one of the members of the U.S. force that was with us from Germany, Italy, different types of groups all over there doing great things.
You know, you could have been an accountant.
Could have.
I mean, you know,
Not me. If you saw me with math, you'd understand why he does my taxes.
so Jessica,
Yes.
what's life like?
It's a different adventure every day. Lots of long nights for him, so you have to always be prepared to adjust your schedule. It's the hurry up and wait lifestyle. You may have dinner needing to be ready at 5 or at midnight. It depends on the day. But there's big family. Everyone in the military is a huge family. They're a great support system. Like he said, he was supposed to be going to one mission, and shortly after it changed to Afghanistan, and I decided to move back home. And we were able to call up other soldiers and buddies to help pack us up and move us out in that short period of time. And everyone's just big family.
Yeah.
And this is when you were in New York.
Yes, when we were in New York.
Okay. Wow. Believe it or not, Captain Marks, people tune into this broadcast. For those younger men and women who are perhaps considering a career in the military, what's your advice?
See the options. It's the best thing I can tell anyone.
And you saw all the options?
I went through every single recruiting station when I was enlisting into the Army. Navy,
right?
Air Force, Marine Corps. Cousin Katie talked me out of joining the Marine Corps, switching over to the Army side of it. But overall, like, just see what you really want to do, understand what each service is capable of, because the recruiters are excellent, and they're going to tell you everything that you need to do in order to join, and they're going to give you the correct answers, but you need to understand what it's going to be like for your family, because you can make that decision what's good for yourself, but in the long run, who's going to support you when you're going out there doing your thing. So see your options, see what jobs are available to you, but by no means, you know, military is always looking for young men and women who want to join the service, and I will never turn anyone away from it. Just make sure you see the options so you get the right job that you want to do.
As a new recruit, I step into the room and it's Captain Marks in front of me. What do I expect from you? What's your reputation, put it that way? Maybe I should ask Mom this question.
If it comes to a new soldier showing up into my office type of deal, I tell them the same thing every single time. Show up with the right place, the right time, with the right amount of motivation and the right uniform. You're not going to have any issues. As long as you do those 4 things, we'll continue on. But training's the #1 priority. Getting focused up, maintaining your equipment, same time. So as long as you can, as long as I treat you like an adult, I expect you to the same way back and forth. But the soldiers I've served with have been amazing. I've had amazing soldiers I've served alongside with, amazing soldiers that I've had as mentors to myself. The Army is filled with quality of leaders and quality soldiers. Every single one of them hungry to go back and continue to do more missions along those lines. And the more hunger that I see in the soldiers, the more hunger it instills in me to want to keep out there and find out new different training objectives that we can get after and new different types of initiatives that we can get after. As long as I see those in the soldiers, it just drives me to get a little bit more motivated. So they drive me more than I drive them.
Comments or questions from the dais? It's impressive, man.
Thank you. No.
You were wrong about him, Rich. He's a great guy.
He was right about one thing. Mom and Dad were not really overly excited when he told us about this. But he did start out in actually the National Guard out of Freeport, military police there.
In Freeport?
Yes.
Freeport was his unit, yeah.
And what's the nickname of Freeport High School?
Pretzels.
That's right.
That's right, very good, very good. My mom was born in Freeport, born and raised.
Really?
Yeah, amazing. Went to Aquin High School, the Bulldogs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. They still draw the names out of the hat to see who you go to prom with. You know that? The only school in the country that does it.
That's insane.
I know. That's how I ended up with Chuck. Anyone from the dais, please.
You were 9 years old when 9/11 happened.
Yes.
And that probably wasn't the primary motivation why you went into the military. But, you know, here we're 17 years later, and we're still involved in Afghanistan. You've had a firsthand life experience as it relates to Afghanistan And I guess I would be curious as to what your assessment is as it relates to the United States, our role in Afghanistan into the future. And I saw a statistic that a lot of the people that are serving in Afghanistan feel that there isn't any exit strategy as it relates to this war. And you've been there, you've experienced it firsthand. I think the people of Geneva would be interested in your opinion. I mean, we've sacrificed a lot of life and a lot of treasure as it relates to this country. And is there a conclusion that we can look forward to?
You speak about 9/11. I've been to Ground Zero twice in my day. Justin and I both have been over there. Phenomenal place to be, a very humbling experience for myself. I do remember 9/11 very, very vividly. I remember coming home from school. I was at St. Peter's at the time, coming back home with my mom, watching the TV. It definitely has been a motivating factor to join the service and what I've done along the way. In regards to your question, what do I see Afghanistan's end state like in their campaign? I don't think that's an answer for me to necessarily say. That's definitely going to be more along the lines of the generals and our leadership and our commander-in-chief along those lines. But what I will say is I definitely think we have the right people in the right place right now. Our leaders are continuing to strive what success looks like, and I think we're closer than we've ever been before. We're getting the right people in the right place, the right amount of equipment in the right place, and the soldiers are ready now, and they're dedicated to go anywhere that they need to, whether it be Afghanistan, Syria, wherever the Army's going to call us, we're going to continue to push forward. The Afghanistan support channels are over there. They're doing great things. Every single one of them are striving to do more excellence, and each one of American soldiers and other NATO nations that are over in Afghanistan right now are striving to do many things. But there is an end state. There is something that's going to be seen, but the soldiers are leading it from the front. Our leaders are developing it from the back, and we're continuing to strive forward. I'm pretty proud of everything that is going on.
I don't think we can ever question the dedication of our military, and I want to thank you for your service and your contribution to a challenging mission. So, thank you.
I appreciate it, sir.
Anyone else in the dais? You make the road trip to Cedar Rapids, then off to Fort Leavenworth.
Leonard Wood, yep.
And
Leonard Wood.
Yes.
Leonard Wood, sorry. Why do you hit me for God's sake?
All the same.
No, Leonard Wood is, he said Leonard Wood, didn't
Yes, correct, sir.
he? Yeah, that's God's place in the south of Missouri. I spent some time there.
It's a good duty station.
As a veteran as well.
Yeah.
When were you there, Chuck? I'm dead serious. I think it's interesting.
I was there in for advanced training in 1969. Was drafted out of law school and found out who Uncle Sam was, and that was one of my duty stations. And then Fort Riley, Kansas, with the 1st Division.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, once you get your orders, after Santa responds, to use your words,
Yes,
Jessica's the first to know.
always.
And is there a style in which you share the news with family depending on what that assignment is? Or is it immediate?
I'm pretty fire from the hip. Cut right through the line, just here's where I'm going next, here's what we're doing, here's my next end state, and I'll keep you posted along the way. That's pretty much how it goes every single time.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, Madam Chairman, I have nothing else unless someone from the dais does.
I think Alderman Ruby had.
I just wanted to say thank you for your service and thank you for your time tonight. I really enjoyed hearing your story.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys bringing me forward.
And Alderman Marks, if you could just pass over the visa. No, I'm actually serious.
I think Mom's going with, so I think that's covered.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I think. For item of business, we'll go to 3A, recommend suspending the rules to permit Alderman Burkhart to be the COW chairman for this meeting and to vote on all action items on this agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Bruno with the motion and Alderman McGowan with the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain on this one, so 8-0 with one abstention. 3B, recommend approval of a special event application for the Ooh La La Chocolate 5K and Half Marathon on Sunday, November 4th, 2018, contingent on completion and submittal of the temporary street closure notification consent form and approved medical plan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Alderman Kilberg with Alderman Bruno with the second, and we'll throw it to Stephanie.
So this is a request for approval of the Ooh La La Chocolate 5K and Half Marathon event planned for Sunday, November 4th, 2018. Representatives from various city departments have reviewed the event application and have recommended that the event organizer be required to complete the street closure notification consent form and submit a medical plan that includes information about ambulance services, first aid, and expectations of city services. With us this evening is the applicant and also Economic Development Director Kathleen Timoshenko. So if there's any additional questions that the council has, I would invite you to ask it of the applicant or Kathleen.
Do we have any questions or comments? Alderman Clements?
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a quick question. I think it's great that we're asking the businesses whether or not they consent to having the streets closed. I love these events. I participated in them for a long time until things started to hurt a lot. What I'm curious about, I live in a ward where these events have almost no impact whatsoever on the residents. I'm curious, do the aldermen in the wards that do have street closures, do you ever hear anything from residents regarding those street closures or any complaints ever?
I'll speak to that. Generally not, no.
I work the Fox Valley Marathon every year and help with the street closures and just to make sure traffic doesn't get onto the race course. And we have some frustrated drivers who are usually trying to get to church or work, but we always have maps to show them where they can go. I don't know that they're always necessarily residents of one place or the other. They're usually just people that caught up in the traffic. Yeah, oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Mary Agnes Zelmer, 418 South 6th Street, Geneva, Illinois. To answer your question, all the residents are notified by a letter mailed to them, and then we have our employees walk around and put another letter in their mailbox, which I know is illegal from the U.S. Postal Service, but right before the event. So all residents are notified long before. And now there's a new, I guess, something, I don't know when it came into play, but we have to have the businesses sign off on it. So I don't know when that must be new because we've never had to do that before. And all the businesses are closed anyways at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, except for Hans Bakery, which he leaves at like 4:30 in the morning, so he doesn't really care. So we really have never had a problem. And our medical plan is, I'm glad to see that the city requested that because we do have a medical plan with 2 ambulances and race guards. Do you guys know what race guards are?
No.
Race guards are trained in first aid, using a defibrillator and CPR, and they pace at the pace of the runners in the half marathon. So we have 10 to 12, and they come in from all over. So if someone looks like they're stressed out or they're not able to continue, the race guards are there to assess it. We also have sweepers on the course who will, usually bringing up the end, sometimes in a half marathon. People aren't as prepared as they would like to be. And our number one concern is safety of our participants. So we make sure that if those people are struggling, we never want to suggest you should never finish, but we want to make sure that they're capable of finishing, and we will suggest they stop if they have to. So we've always had a medical plan in place, but I'm really excited that we were able to share it with the city this year as well.
Alderman Kilberg?
What are you projecting as far as the number of the participants?
Last year we had 1,200, but with the addition of the half marathon, we have to know by tomorrow because we get our medals from out of the country. So I'm thinking we're going to cut off the half marathon at 500 and the 5K at 1,000, so about 1,500.
Okay, so that will bring a lot of people to the downtown on a Sunday morning.
It will.
I guess my question is that there's 4 churches in the immediate area. They've all been notified?
They've all been notified.
And are open to what's proposed here?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
And we
Good.
always make sure there are certain people who go to certain services, especially, there's 7 a.m. services, so we make sure that they can get their elderly and that our course marshals, and they know to let them in and get them in. So we are very aware and very respectful of all of the churches.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman McGowan?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Chairperson. Mr. and Mrs. Zellner, thank you so much for being here. I have not yet run the Chocolate 5K, but I'd like to. I used to be a runner. I'm getting back into it, I promise. I noticed on the race website that the recipient is the St. Jude Children's Hospital.
Yes.
Could you maybe explain for anyone who hasn't heard before what your affiliation is or why you chose St. Jude Children's Research Hospital to be the person that this
The
event
recipient, the
supports?
benefactor?
Yeah.
Absolutely. St. Jude's is, for any of you who don't know, was started a little over 50 years ago. And anyone whose child is suffering from cancer can go there. And it is at no cost to the parents. They have a school there, so your child and their siblings can go to school. You're housed, your food, everything is covered. All they want you to worry about is your child. Their mission has never changed. And they are probably one of the top 3 internationally recognized logos behind Nike and McDonald's comes St. Jude's. It costs right under $2 million a day to operate the hospital, and that's all given by donation. They are probably one of the best-run charities that I have ever come across. And having spent 10 years in non-for-profit, most of them are pretty poorly run. They are not. The other thing that we love about them is they share their research. So if most children in Chicago are treated with a St. Jude protocol, any child at Delano or at Central DuPage who's being treated is being treated by a St. Jude protocol. They share their research openly. We love that. We think that's, really what it's about. And we partner with Chef and Esther Roby, are friends of ours, and it's a very good feeling to be able to donate all of the proceeds to kids and to impact their lives directly. So that's why we chose them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone from the audience? No? Mary Agnes and Paul, thanks for being here tonight. We'll hope for good weather for you, so, all right, thank you. I think we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, 3C, recommend resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with SB Friedman for an analysis of project costs and projected revenues related to the proposed industrial development within the Southeast Area Master Plan in the amount of $20,460. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Alderman Marks with the
Second.
motion, and Alderman Bruno with the second.
Thank you. So this item, as Alderman Burghardt said, is for authorization of a professional services agreement with SB Friedman to look at the project costs and projected revenues related to the proposed industrial development within the Southeast Master Plan area. This agreement will provide for the review and analysis of materials, revenue projections, construction costs, gap analysis, and a return on investment, all helping to identify the need and opportunity for public-private financing. SB Friedman was initially selected in 2014 through an RFP process, and at that time completed some recognizance work and a preliminary analysis for future corporate park. Again, Kathleen Timoshenko is with us this evening if there's any additional questions that the council has.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Alderman Swanson.
Either Kathleen or Stephanie, what type of expenses would we be looking at that we're going to be analyzing or perhaps providing financing to the developer? And also, it mentions that they would study the gap analysis, and what would the gap be created by? So could you explain a little bit more, and what type of things will we be investing in?
Sure. Well, we have a significant investment, public and private. For the corporate park, you have to build roads, bring sewer, water, electric. You have to do mass grading. You have many, many expenses to get you to the point to be able to start to build buildings. So in 2012, the city did an analysis of what the cost would be to build out the park. There's public costs, and then there's estimated private costs. So we're at the point where we need to start deciding who's going to be paying for what, and what will be public costs that are carried and what will be expected of the developer. So on the development side, you're going to have what level of investment an industrial developer can carry to support this type of park. And then you're going to identify a gap that private financing can only go so far, because you have market realities of what people will pay, what end users will pay, the rate of return that would be expected for a developer to make that type of investment, carrying the land, and what they would be able to put into the project to make the project work. And you're going to have, we expect, a gap between there, because it is a pretty significant investment, and you're competing with other sites that are more readied than this site. This site in particular has some heavy-duty expenses, including the Couts Road extension from 38 to Fabian, and it also needs an electric substation for our utility. So those are costs that are going to be large-scale costs. So we're at the point now where we've updated our cost estimates from 2012, and the developer is doing the same thing on their side. They're analyzing costs, and we're at the point where we need to start understanding where there's duplications of costs, who's going to carry what our expectation will be, and what the developer will be requesting from the city.
And will the SB Friedman report give us a suggestion as to what the sharing should be between the private developer and the city?
It will start to give us a suggestion of what is typical for, we'll be looking at comparable parks and how we can get our park competitive and what the expectation will be, but it will be up to the city to determine what we will want to support.
Right.
And what vehicle we will use for that public inducement.
And when we developed the northern industrial area north of 38 and east of Kirk, did we also engage in this similar type of study?
I wasn't here at the time, but I think it was a different type of development where there were individual lots sold to end users. But I'm sure Chuck could explain more.
Affectionately called the Clapper Farm and the Geneva Business Park. No, the city engaged in some extension of public utilities prior to the development of that park, and then entered into an annexation agreement that required a public-private relationship, but there was no organized financing program. Mm-hmm. And there was some reimbursement of expenses, I think, by the developer. But a lot of the backbone utilities were advanced by the city and then reimbursed through extension and user fees.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Kilburg?
Will this include any market analysis as it relates to these types of industrial parks and where we're situated between the two major interstates? You've got Elgin on the north, you've got Aurora on the south. with a little closer proximity to those interstates. You know, I guess a determination of whether or not we might be successful with this and what we might need to do to market these properties at some point in time down the road. You know, I think we're at a point where we really need to take a good close look at that. Now, I don't assume that this study will engage in that at all, right? Or will it?
Well, I think there's a twofold answer. You already have an industrial developer who believes in the market and believes in this site, and they've invested a significant amount of money to assemble land. So you have that already happening. As part of the analysis, we will want to make sure that the park can be competitive and can compete with those competing parks. So you're starting with that baseline. You understand what land is available for in those parks. It's, you know, $3 to $3.50 a square foot is what end users are paying for buildable ready lots. So you can work backwards that way. You are looking at that market analysis and competition, and then you're working backwards. A lot of the parks that are already in existence, you know, have received inducements. There's been information that was published in the paper recently about what's going on at the DuPage Park that is directly next door to this park, and the level of inducements that have been put in place by the taxing authorities there. So yes, it will come from this study, and some of that we've been collecting and we understand, and some of that the developer knows because, you know, they're in the market also. So that will be part of the big picture, yes.
You alluded to the park just to the immediate east of our proposed park. And that was Dennis Hastert played a big part in securing the funding for that. And it really not a whole lot has happened there over 15 years, has it?
Well, it's really popping now. They've got several deals. It was just published in the paper in the last week. So there's a lot of back.
So what, I guess my question then related to that would be, why did it take so long for that park to eventually start exploding?
Right.
Is that the term you used?
There's a
Popping?
a lot of backstory to that, and you know, it had to do with the way that the park was being marketed and some of the restrictions that were in place. A lot of that has been overcome, and because of that, there's been a lot of activity in the park, and it really speaks to the strong market because you've got several businesses that have now gone public with establishing in the park. So it's more to do with the background things than.
I guess to that point then, maybe it would be good to know about what some of those challenges were so that we don't fall into the same trap. And hopefully we're moving in that direction and that this study will help us. And that's why I ask about the marketing piece and making sure that we have affordability and that we're not placing an additional burden on the taxpayers or the developer to necessarily site here in Geneva. You know, I guess my objective would be that we get it right out of the gate. And, you know, how do we do that?
Yes, and
is this going to be a part of that?
This definitely will be a part of that and making those decisions as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman McGowan.
Thank you. Hi, Kathleen. Regarding the cost, the $20,460, is that an estimated cost? Because I was looking through the package just at some of the hourly rates that were given for various levels of staff at SB Friedman. If they are able to finish up their work in less time than they are currently estimating, will they say that the final bill would possibly be less than the $20,460 that's been quoted? Or is that typically not the case? Like, this is just the minimum that they will charge?
I think it's the maximum, not the minimum. You know, I think that it is likely that that will be the charge, but they will not exceed it. they will not exceed it, but they could come under budget if it happened to be that way.
Okay, I was just kind of curious. Stephanie,
Yeah,
did you
no,
have
that's, I
something?
mean, the way the agreement's written is that is they're not to exceed. If for some reason they think more work needs to be done, they would have to notify us before engaging in that work to get additional approvals. Obviously, if they get the work done and it's less than that amount, they're going to be billing us monthly. So as they perform work, they will be invoicing us. So that's they do this for a living, so that's their best guess estimate of what they think it'll cost to accomplish the work that we've asked for.
Very well, thank you.
I had a couple questions. Is it unusual that the city and taxpayers are paying for this study and this work instead of the private developer?
Well, the developer is engaging the same type of representation on their side. We could ask the developer to pay for it, but we would like it to be our study. We'd like to control it. We would like it to be independent. We would like to be the client since we are getting the advice.
That makes sense. I mean, related, so then if this specific project weren't to move forward, would we have some value still, do we think, out of this work by SB Friedman?
Yes, because in the planning for the corridor, if this project didn't move forward, we would understand why, and we'd be able to regroup and understand how to repackage the project and do something different. But we're pretty far down the road. I mean, we've authorized a lot of things the city council has with respect to this project. We have a developer who's assembled land. This has been within the city's planning documents for several years. So we're headed this way.
Sure. And I understand that. I just thought, if we have another recession and this thing falls apart,
Right.
will we have any value out of this work by SB Friedman still?
I think we would, because we would understand the challenges in today's costs.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Ruby, did you?
I'm just wondering how closely tied this is with TIF funding requests?
TIF is one of the ways of public financing, and it's probably the forerunner in public financing for this project, but we're going to look at all different possibilities. But TIF is something that would help us with the front-end costs. This project has a lot of front-end costs, and it's always been identified that that's a tool that is probably very strong in that area of being able to come up with money up front.
And if I may add, part of doing this study is so that we understand what that gap is and what we're looking at, what the investment is from the city side, and the various options of how to finance that.
Okay.
And what those mechanisms are. So this is kind of in order to understand what our best options are, this is what we do.
Sure. And Kathleen, you mentioned that the developer is also getting their own study. So essentially, the work is being duplicated. The city of Geneva is having the same work done as the developer?
No, the city of Geneva is preparing and going to move toward examining what the developer is going to submit to us. The city of Geneva understands what the public utility investment is. We've just looked at that and refreshed that information. Now we have to divide who is going to do what, and the developer is going to be presenting their numbers and their gap analysis. So we'll be analyzing that. So there'll be some duplications, but it'll be two different looks at the same project.
Okay. So the TIF, I don't know if this is off topic, assuming there will be a TIF, a request for TIF funds, is that, it depends on the unique situation, but is there any formula that the city follows or that anywhere written to give us a baseline for what that number should be, or are we relying pretty heavily on the information from this report to determine those numbers?
If I can answer, so at this point, we don't know what that financing mechanism is. So there wouldn't be a request for TIF financing unless the the TIF was in place.
Okay.
But let's say there's a TIF in place, there are expenditures under the statute that can be reimbursable by TIF. So that's kind of what you're looking at. You're looking at, is this an allowable expense, and can it be reimbursed by this mechanism?
Okay.
But that's, we're not there yet.
Sure.
So first, they're gonna identify what that gap is. We're gonna look at what makes sense from a public perspective, what makes sense from the private perspective. And when we find out what that is, then we figure out what's the best financing mechanism to accomplish that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else from up here? Anyone from the audience? If not, let's take a roll call vote for this. 3C, yep.
Bruno,
Aye.
Burghardt,
Aye.
Clements,
Aye.
Ruby. Kilberg,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Marks,
Aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously, 9-0. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
I did. He said Bruno, and then he said me.
Sorry, my fault.
No, it's okay. 3D, recommend resolution authorizing execution of a contract with Utility Dynamics for underground electric relocation at Kirk Road and Fabian Parkway in the amount of $423,321. Have a motion. Alderman Marks with the motion. And Alderman Clements with the second.
So the proposed resolution authorizes execution of a contract with Utility Dynamics to complete the underground electric relocation project at the intersection of Kirk Road and Fabian Parkway. This project is budgeted and required due to Kane County widening the intersection, thus requiring electric lines located within the right-of-way to be relocated. Again, it gets a little more technical, so if you have any technical questions, we have Director Babica or Superintendent Wright here this evening to answer any additional questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the dais? Alderman McGowan.
Thank you. Fabian and Kirk already seems like a really wide intersection in all directions. I'm just wondering where it's being widened to. Does anyone know? Director Babica, would you happen to know? Not that there's anything we can do about it, I'm just kind of curious.
Well, the intersection of Kirk and Fabian is outside the city corporate limits, so our involvement with the review process has been limited to the public utilities. But they are extending the turn bays, both north and south on Fabian, as well as putting in a barrier medians on Kirk Road to the east. I'm sorry, Kirk Road north and south, barrier medians, and Fabian east and west with extensions of the turn bays.
So barrier medians, like a raised curb in the, between the northbound and southbound lanes? Is that what I'm
Correct.
hearing? And then you also said the turn bays.
When, again, the project has not been finalized yet, so I think it might be a little bit more out of turn for city staff to be speaking to this. Probably the best people to answer these questions would be the Kane County Department of Transportation, their engineering sections. If you'd like, you want to send me a question, I can forward it on to their engineering team, and perhaps they can give you the answers that you're looking for.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to
I just don't
do
want to speak
that.
out of turn for a project
Oh,
that's not
yeah,
mine.
no,
That's
definitely.
all.
I was just kind of curious, I guess, from a resident standpoint. But I support the project going forward. I'm sure they're doing it for a good reason, but I definitely would like to get more information, and then maybe we could report back to a future
Sure, be
city
my
council
pleasure.
meeting. Okay, thank you so much.
Anyone else? Alderman Bruno? No? No. Just getting ready to
Preparing to
vote,
vote.
yes. Anyone from the audience? No. All right. I think we can do voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously, 9-0. Moving on to 3E, recommend resolution authorizing execution of a contract with Rempe Sharp and Associates related to electrical engineering services in an amount not to exceed $36,200. Do I have a motion?
So,
Second.
Alderman Brune McGowan, and then Alderman Marks with the second.
Okay, so this resolution authorizes the execution of a contract with Rempe Sharp and Associates for engineering services in an amount not to exceed $36,200. This is actually for 3 separate projects. One is the replacement of the electrical and control cabinet at the west side lift station. The second project is replacement of conduit and wires from the wet well to the motor control center at the Couts Road lift station. And the third project is replacing the electrical control cabinet at the Dodson pump station. Staff solicited proposals for the work and determined that Rempe Sharp can fulfill the needs of the project and at the lowest cost. Again, Director Babica is here if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments? None, and anyone from the audience? Doesn't look like it. I'd say I like that these 3 were bundled together. Do we feel like that's gonna be more efficient and
That
saving
seemed
us
more
some money?
efficient and kind of one scope of services to accomplish all 3 things.
Very good. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously, 9-0. Moving on to 3F. Recommend resolution authorizing execution of a contract with Dami Mechanical related to repairs at the Geneva East Lift Station in an amount not to exceed $55,999.99. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Alderman Bruno with the motion.
Seconded.
And a second with Alderman Kilburg.
So again, we're talking about a contract to repair the Geneva East Lift Station. Dami Mechanical was the low bidder for the project, and although this is unforeseen and unbudgeted, there are funds available from other projects that received favorable bids and came in under the budgeted amount. So again, Director Babica is here to answer any specific questions you may have.
Do we have any questions or comments from the dais?
I
Alderman Kilburg.
had a question. I was wondering if this might help address some of the issues that we have with sewer backups in Geneva East historically. Will this play any role in that at all?
Well, this was found following a backup in that area. Basically, what staff determined in troubleshooting all the lines is that this check valve was in a location that was not readily visible. It was actually buried in a concrete chamber wall. So that's, lift stations are extremely caustic environments. Things tend to wear out rather quickly. So this cost will be to replace that and actually to position it in a more favorable location so it'll be able to be visually inspected on a regular basis. As to whether or not, to answer your question, every situation's unique in its character and what the events led to those failures. We do the best we can to limit the likelihoods of unpleasant experiences for our customers. But if you're asking me to stand up in front of you and...
No, I'm not asking you that. I guess what I'm asking would be is will this allow us to be more responsive and probably do a better job of maintenance
Absolutely.
of this
Again,
lift
it's-
station? So
yes.
this is actually being relocated somewhat?
It's being relocated to a more favorable position where it can be
Okay.
visually inspected. It's literally before it was behind the chamber wall, buried, encased in concrete.
Okay,
It was impossible to be seen with the naked eye.
okay. So there's improvements made here, and time will tell whether or not it helps alleviate some of these issues.
That's a very fair assessment.
Good, thank you.
Anyone else from up here? No? Anyone from the audience? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. On to item G, recommend resolution authorizing execution of a plat of easement grant for 1900 Averill Road. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Alderman
Second.
McGowan and Alderman Bruno with the second.
Thank you. So this item is in regards to Flavors of North America, also known as FONA, is planning an addition to the existing building at 1900 Averill Road. As part of the plan, FONA has vacated an old water main and easement and installed a new water main. So this plat of easement would grant the new utility easement covering the new water main. Staff has confirmed the placement of the easement and tested the integrity of the new water main and supports the proposed plat of easement. Again, Director Babica is here this evening if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments? Anyone from the audience? Oh, Alderman McGowan.
Thank you. I'm just curious about the addition that's being planned? How big is it and where exactly? Well, I guess I don't need to know exactly where it is, but I guess if you could just share some more details about the addition that's in the works at FONA. If you're at liberty to do so.
So technically, that's not the issue before the council,
okay.
so.
That's all right. I could ask separately
sorry.
after this meeting. No problem. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously, 9-0. Item H, recommend resolution authorizing execution of a letter of consent, or of consent for modifications with Crown Castle. Can I have a motion? Alderman Marks, and with a second, Alderman Bruno.
So on this one, the city has received a request to modify equipment at the wireless communication facility, which is located at the south edge of the Public Works facility. Pursuant to the agreement with the city, Crown Castle is obligated to secure the written consent of the city prior to any tenant improvements. However, this consent may not be unreasonably withheld. In addition, prior to any modification or additions, the user must also secure all applicable permits and approvals from the city. And once again, Director Babica is here to answer any questions you may have that are relevant to the item.
Alderman Clements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple quick questions. Do we have any idea what kind of modifications would be made? I'm only asking because I have the letter here that we're supposed to sign, and it seems like we have no ability to say no. It's like a rubber stamp kind of deal. So do we know what kind of modifications they're requesting? And what would be a reasonable reason to withhold consent?
We had asked that very question as to what their plans were, and we were denied that information. And we were quoted verse, the lease of that the letter of consent will not be unreasonably denied. However, the lease terms do provide significant coverage to the city and the residents that the letter of consent does not act as carte blanche for them to do as they see fit. They still have to apply for permits. If there's any zoning issues that may arise, they still have to apply for access through the public utility easements and whatnot. So that is where the city's influence comes into the matter. The way it was explained to me by their representative, their legal representative from Crown Castle, is that this is a highly fluid environment and that these projects can take short-term to long-term, and that this is basically a good faith effort from Crown Castle to secure a tenant to start the design process.
Okay. So I feel like I don't know what I'm consenting to, really, even with all of that. If it was my property or my home, I'd be uncomfortable just kind of saying, here, do what you will. My attorneys will review it later. But I
So-
feel like I don't know I don't understand what our role is here.
So
other
our
than just-
safeguard mechanism is that they do have to provide plans and they do have to get permits. So there is still, it's not just carte blanche, as Director Babica was saying. Unfortunately, that's a lot of how these telecommunications agreements.
That's kind of why
have
I'm
been
asking, though,
written,
because I
and-
think it's kind of an important topic in the community right now. And again, with all that said, I
But it's
still.
with, it's a modification to equipment that they already have
Yeah.
at the Public Works. So it's not
Specific site.
at a specific site in a specific location.
I fully
So-
understand that. I can't figure out what our role as a council is here, if it's just to consent to something that we don't even know what we're consenting to. So I guess that's what I can't get my arms around. What is our purpose here?
Well, the purpose is that the city council is the legal owner of the assets of the city. And that tower is on a city asset, which the city council executed a lease agreement to. So that is basically, if it was on private property, and I know I'm tracking because Chuck's giving me a good nod there, but if it was on your private property, you could sign that as the owner, but you, aldermen, elected officials, are serving as the de facto owners for the
Right.
public, for a public asset. So you're granting the city administrator the authority to sign that letter of consent, and you're acting on your behalf.
And again, do we have anything that would tell us what a reasonable reason would be to withhold consent?
Legal will speak
Oh.
to that.
I think what's going on here is, these are back hallway wireless communications all kinds of communication issues, and they've got prospective tenants and users, and they don't want to disclose those because of the marketplace. So I think that our safeguard is that we're going to be looking at the plans and specs, and it's confined to a specific location.
Thank you all.
Alderman Bruno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So would it be safe to say, I guess this is for legal counsel, it seems like our concern is the underlying lease that we already have. We cannot be surprised and it's going to be 100 feet taller.
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Kilburg.
Out of curiosity, what is the terms of our lease? What's the length of it, and is the fees we could collect negotiable at some point in time?
So
Renegotiable?
Yeah, the current lease right now, I think, goes through 2022 or 24.
22.
I think it's 2022. So there is, I don't know the fees off the top of my head, but there is an escalator clause every year. They have approached the city about extending that lease. It just hasn't, we just haven't had the
Processed
time
yet.
to look at it and determine what's a good deal. They would like to extend that lease for 40 years if they could. So at this point, we have not entered into those negotiations.
Thanks, Rich.
Anyone else? Anyone from the audience? Let's do a roll call.
Bruno,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Nay.
Clements,
Nay.
Ruby. Kilburg,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Marks,
Aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
That passes 7-2.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, item I, recommend adoption of the strategic plan document. Can I have a motion, please? Alderman Marks is and Alderman Swanson.
Okay, so tonight, the city council is being asked to adopt the strategic plan document. This document is the result of a year-long process facilitated by the Strategic Plan Advisory Committee. Upon adoption, the plan will be used to help prioritize objectives and action items as part of the budget development process. With us this evening is Elizabeth Clements, the SPAC Chair, and she's going to give, I think, a short overview and then be available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I think I'm gonna. Where is it? I had a visual. There we go. Yeah. So the process to develop this strategic plan actually started over a year ago. So I think on behalf of the Strategic Plan Advisory Committee, I can safely say we're very happy to be at this point. I did want to acknowledge a few members of our committee that we have here tonight. We have Brendan Casson, who's also our vice chair, Winnie Frankel, and Billy Molesky. So we last spoke to the city council in the end of July, and we presented the draft plan. And since that, I wanted to give you a very short update on what we have done since that time. So we had our discussion with you, and we did make some small changes to the plan based upon that discussion. For example, refining some performance measures, and we added some language to specific items, such as promoting green choices, the Skip the Straw program. And so just as we took your feedback from there, we wanted to solicit feedback from the larger community. So I think you all saw the video that city staff put together to promote our community meeting. Ben and I will be happy to give you autographs after the session if you want. We did have our community meeting September 20th at the Public Works facility. We had a good turnout for that meeting. Roughly 30 people showed up. And we wanted this to be an interactive session, so I gave a brief overview of SPAC and how we got to this point in the strategic plan. But from there, we split up around the room. We had poster boards with our visions and our the objectives within the plan. We had members of SPAC posted at each poster board, city staff as well. And we just interacted with the community, answered questions, clarified things, got their feedback on what, things that they wanted clarified. And then something else that we did at that meeting is we had a wall set up that's an 2025 Geneva is. And as people left the meeting, we asked them to fill out on a Post-it, like fill in the blank, complete the sentence. So I wanted to give you a few examples of some sentences that people gave us. So in 2025, Geneva is a vibrant, diverse community that constantly attracts new residents and businesses, offering a wealth of opportunity for everyone. Geneva is the best in the West. It will be the friendliest and most welcoming city in Illinois. It will be a diverse, accepting community. It is recognized throughout the region as a great place to visit and to live. It's still committed to retiring the coal plant as soon as possible. It will continue to be my hometown. So those are just a few examples of some of the messages that people left for us up on the wall. So combining the feedback that we got from that community meeting, plus all the feedback that we got from all the sessions that we did last fall, focus groups, surveys, public forums, all together, the document that sits before you represents well more than 600 individuals from this community who contributed their thoughts and their ideas for the plan. So we believe that this plan accurately reflects the perspectives of the community, their priorities, what's important to them. The 5 visions that are part of that plan that came from the community, that was based off the key themes document that summarized all the community feedback. So economic vitality, strong governance, environmental stewardship, excellent municipal services, quality of life, again, that came from the community. A couple of things I wanted to point out about the plan. We designed this to be a plan that can be updated and reviewed on an annual basis. So while we anticipate that the visions and the objectives would stay the same, the action items within it would change on an annual basis based upon as city staff completes them. The performance measures, this is having accountability and actual ways to measure performance in the plan, that was important to us. And those performance measures will help connect the plan to the city's budget document and day-to-day operations. We put an emphasis on transparency. So again, that's where the accountability performance measures come into place. And we also design this plan in a way that we hope that we can keep providing the community with regular updates as we make progress. Finally, I just wanted to give a special thank you to city staff, especially Ben McCready and Christopher Rainey, who really helped bring this plan to fruition. There were lots of details and research that had to be done, and SPAC could not have done it without city staff. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments that you have.
Thank you very much. So I'm sure you are relieved to be at this stage. So Alderman Maladra, who's seen a few strategic plans in his time with the city.
True. So yeah, I've excuse me, participated in all of them, and I can say that this one is probably the most clear and concise of the bunch, and it's the one that I didn't participate in directly.
You did.
I did, okay, that's why.
We had a work session, and you were there.
So I just have a comment. So first of all, I really do think this is a well-done plan. To me, this is one of the cornerstones of the framework we use along with the comprehensive land use plan for setting policy and making decisions. And I think that this does a really good job of strengthening that framework, updating it, and putting something in place to help guide us as we manage some pretty tricky things moving forward. I was actually nervous going into this one. It's the first update we've done since the Great Recession. And I'm surprised and pleased to see that our core visions, our core values haven't changed in spite of that. That was really encouraging for me. So, well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Kilburg.
Yeah, this is a nice document, and I know that there's a lot of work that's gone into it. Could you just explain a little bit, and maybe I'm missing the point here, the outcomes, and we see the X's. Could you explain that? I mean, the more X's we see, the more of a priority that is then? Or what is that telling us? Because I
Sure.
don't think it was explained in there necessarily, was it?
We tried to provide some basic definitions for the terms, but I know the charts, when you first look at them, they're a little overwhelming. What this is meant to show, is this what Alderman Kilberg is referring to? So for their key outcomes that we're looking at within each vision. And what we did is we took the action item and we said this action item matches up to these outcomes. So, for example, on economic vitality, just looking at objective
Okay.
1, the first action item, review, so the action item is review and update the Homes for a Changing Region plan. So the key outcomes that we'll be using to
Okay.
measure that will be B and H in that.
Got it. I didn't see the correlation between the outcomes and the key outcomes, the text above and the explanation below. Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Bruno.
Thanks again, Madam Chair. Yeah, again, kudos for putting the document together. It's, I like the sensibility of it and how it links together, how, I mean, you can see the connection through from the vision to the action item. I am curious, in previous plans, there was a lot more explicit discussion of historic preservation. It's mentioned in here. How did that come up in conversation? Is it, we're happy with what's going on, so, you know, and I know it's referenced the historic preservation plan. Did that come up in conversation a lot?
I would say in the general meetings that we had last fall, people who attended those meetings did emphasize that historic preservation is important to them. And that's why it is part of the vision under economic vitality, and it's also alluded to in quality of life. So it's important to them. The specific action items, those were driven by what, within the vision that's painted, what is achievable right now from city staff, and that's where those things can change.
I do have a couple things highlighted, just randomly flitting around here. On page 12, under the environmental stewardship, just popped out at me, develop an illicit discharge detection and remediation program. Do we know what that is? Are there things that we can like buy out of a catalog, or is this just, let's think about something like that?
SPAC asked about that one too.
So we knew that the language of that one might raise some eyebrows, but this has to do with our water and wastewater and what we are discharging into the Fox River. So yes, there are things that we can do to be better stewards of the environment and what it is that we are discharging.
Got it. Let's see, if you'll bear with me while I flip through.
And again, we already meet all applicable federal and state laws, but
Right.
just always looking how we can do better.
Sure. Page 16, the city would provide world-class equipment, infrastructure, and facilities. I probably wouldn't have picked that term. I don't think we need to be world-class in our, I think we need to have high value. But I don't mind the language being in there. I probably would have picked something different, but and first responders aren't here. I won't ask that question. Yeah, probably the biggest thing here, and it was in our previous plan, increased, this is a vision on page 19, quality of life, increased access to a variety of new and economically diverse housing options that appeal to families and individuals at all stages in life. Now, we had that before, and everyone was into it, and then when a project was put in front of us, people freaked out. So I want that in there, but I think there's got to be some political will to actually follow through on those things when they're presented. That's it. Thank you.
I
Nice
agree.
job.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman McGowan.
Thank you so much for being here, to you and your SPAC committee and all the city staff that worked on this. Everyone's done an amazing job as far as I can tell, and I think this plan is amazing. There's a lot in here. I feel like every time I've read through it, something kind of new jumps out at me, and it's just nice to have it all kind of concisely put together. It's extremely user-friendly, and I'm really excited about it. I like the action items, and I like the fact that these are measurable items, and I guess I can't say enough as far as positive things about this, and I'm looking forward to the next few years to kind of see how this plan, I guess, takes effect. And I think it's great. So thank you again so much.
Thank you.
I had just a minor question, and I love it too. It's so readable and just very much that, residents can dive in and really find something for everyone here. And I loved how much engagement we got from residents, and that even at the end, we went back to residents, and it sounds like you got a good turnout. If you could talk me through, like, how you envision the action items. I'm going to use the quality of life section, which I love that's kind of a big bucket for just how we all feel about Geneva, from kind of beautification efforts to being a diverse and welcoming place. So on objective 1, where we talk about safety for bicyclists and pedestrians, in the action items, I would have loved to have seen maybe an action item about working on crosswalks for pedestrians, because that's what I hear from so many moms, that they're worried about crosswalks and they'd love to see us improve crosswalks. I mean, moving forward, how would you envision us getting that to be an action item? Is that something we would talk about in?
Sure, yeah, I mean, again,
Maybe in
the action
November
items
or
did come
workshop?
from
Yeah,
staff,
so the idea is that the visions and the objectives kind of stay in the plan, and then every year we look at those action items to meet those objectives. So if there's a particular action item that the council wants to see implemented or to happen, that would be in the strategic planning workshop, so that we know that that's the priority for the upcoming year, and that's where we put our resources. So these action items that are here, we'll talk about more in November, because these were ones that staff kind of came up with so that we could have something to show you that fit with the objectives. So these are not set in stone. These will constantly be reprioritized, they'll be completed, they'll be, maybe become obsolete, but they'll constantly be changing. So that's kind of how that works.
And if we have residents, say in, March or April, we have residents who can, get behind some effort, whether it's, something that maybe we didn't envision. How do we see that playing out for us?
So it depends what it is. If it's something that is not cost intensive, then it's something that we can just implement, then the council as a body can make that motion or that request. If it's something that requires financing, then we obviously have to look at the budget and see what dollars were budgeted for what money is left, what we could reprioritize, if that is now a priority or not a priority.
Okay.
So,
But for residents, they can use this as a
but
framework.
this is their framework to, certainly for residents, I would look at it and say, if you have something that you want to get accomplished in the city and you can tie it to the strategic plan and a specific objective, then that's golden, because this is kind of the framework that leads us to the future. So we try to tie everything that we do back to this plan.
Thank you. Elizabeth, what's next for the Strategic Plan Advisory Commission, besides like a huge exhale? But I mean, how do you see yourselves? Obviously, you'll be important updating this, but what do you think's next after your group went through this kind of major project?
Well, I mean, the very next thing we'll do, assuming that the city approves the plan, we'll go through our own prioritization exercise to bring to the workshop in November. But then looking further out there, I think there are a number of items within here that involve having more discussions with city council, for example, housing diversity, home rule. Those are a couple items in here. And if SPAC can play a role in helping to facilitate those discussions, we certainly can. We have some very active subcommittees that we're trying to grow, especially our student government subcommittee. So I think that there's a continued role there, and just will be available as needed to help preserve the plan and make sure that it stays relevant.
Yeah, I think you all, our members, are just great kind of extra arms into the community to talk to people who maybe, I don't know, hold back when they talk to us. Not so much, I don't feel like anybody holds back, but still just you can gather that feedback in a less official capacity, so.
Right.
Good.
Right.
Thank you.
And one thing I did want to point out, that the visual here, this is a word cloud that Ben McCready put together, that this actually represents words within the strategic plan. So not the feedback we got, but actually the words that you see the most in the plan. I thought it was interesting to see words like collaborate, relationships, diversity. So it gives you an idea of what some of the focus is in the plan.
Very good. Anybody else? All right, good work. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're back down to new business, public comment. Does anybody have any new business from the dais? Alderman McGowan.
Thank you, Chairman Burgard. This is Chairperson, Chairman, Chair Extraordinaire. We are in the midst of Fire Prevention Week, National Fire Prevention Week. It started yesterday, October 7th. It goes through Saturday, October 13th. And a bit of background, I'll keep this quick, I'll talk fast. In 1925, President Calvin Coolidge proclaimed Fire Prevention Week a national observance, making it the longest public health observance in our country. This week in October was chosen because, if I've done my math correctly, approximately 147 years ago on this date, October 8th, the Great Chicago Fire started. So, according to weather records, 1871 had been an extremely dry summer and fall, leading to the conditions which led to the Chicago fire. A fire in a fire, mere seconds can mean the difference between safe escape and a tragedy. So there are many Fire Prevention Week events and activities scheduled in the area. One in particular I'd like to share with everyone is Saturday, October 13th from noon till 3 p.m. The St. Charles Fire Department is hosting their annual open house at Fire Station 1, which is located at 112 North Riverside Avenue in St. Charles. There will be live firefighting demonstrations and all kinds of other relevant events to promote fire safety and awareness. So I just wanted to share that with the community.
Thank you, Alderman McGowan. Anyone else? Anybody from the audience? All right, I think if I have a motion to adjourn. Alderman Marks, and a second?
Second.
Alderman Bruno. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.